In the first two columns, we have the seven spirits of Yahweh in the order given to us in the biblical book of Isaiah chapter 11. In the third column, we have the days of the week in the order observed by the majority of Akan, that is from Sunday, the first of the week, to Saturday. In the fourth column, we have the list of Akan soul names, male and female, according to the day of the week when they are born. In the fifth column, we have the seven Akan creator souls of Nyame. In the sixth column, we have a summary of the qualities of the seven creator souls of Nyame, according to the Akans of Ghana and pertaining to the records we have read earlier from Jimmy Donkwa, Philip Bartle, and empirical data from interviews of the population of Techiman in Ghana. In the seventh column, we have a summary of the qualities of the seven creator souls of Nyame, according to diverse Akan tribes of Côte d'Ivoire and as recorded by the Ivorian historian Professor Kwame Alou. I will start our comparative analysis with a breakdown of my name to begin with. I was born on a Tuesday, therefore my Kradin or my soul name is Kwabna. A female counterpart born on that day would have been named Abna. The specific spirit among the seven spirits of God that would have caused the spark of life that brought me into existence through the breath of the Almighty Father is known in my Akan tradition as Bena. The one who is spiritually well cooked or is ripe, as the name implies in the Akan language. But how does this relate to the Bible? In the order given to Isaiah, the third spirit is the spirit of understanding. Understanding is an English word, and not what Isaiah, a Hebrew speaker, would have heard. Let's look into the Blue Letter Bible to unveil the actual word that was given to Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2, "And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord." The actual word for understanding here is listed in Strong's H998 as Continuing now in part 3, our objective is to see if we can draw any other parallels between the characteristics of the seven spirits of Nyame in Akan tradition and those of the seven spirits of Yahweh in scriptures. The so-called Hebrew noun for spirit, which is also used in the Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2 text, where the seven spirits of God are listed, is Ruach. This is different to terms for other celestial beings, such as angels, which in the Hebrew text is Malak, meaning messenger. If I was to pronounce the Hebrew word used for spirit of God, which is Ruach, in a not so Western-like manner, I would have said Ra. In my Akan language, we would say Kra. Ra is defined in Strong's H7307 as wind, breath, mind, spirit, energy of life. The same definition is found among the Akan, where Kra is the spark of life and is contained in the breath of Nyame, the Supreme Being, as already explained in part 1 of this series. One God, seven spirits, that is to say, one God, seven breaths, seven energies of life. We know from Revelation chapter 5 verse 6 that the seven spirits of God are sent out into all the earth.
Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals." Then I saw a lamb, looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. The lamb had 7 horns and 7 eyes. which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth.
For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to give strong support to those whose heart is blameless toward him.
One God, 7 spirits, 7 breaths sent throughout the earth to give us the strong support we need to seek perfection, get wisdom, understanding, receive counseling, get the strength we need to overcome battles and tribulations, the knowledge of the will of Yah to attain salvation in the reverence of the Creator. Do you now see why John chose to remember the 7 spirits in his opening greeting to the 7 churches in the book of Revelation chapter 1 verse 4? The same goes for the Akan people who chose to engrave the remembrance of these 7 Kra or spirits into our collective memory through time and generations by giving a name reflective of their respective attributes to every single Akan child according to the day of the week when they are born. The evidences provided in part 1 of this series show that the Akan people are of ancient Israel, and we presented further witnesses in the field of anthropological academics, bearing record that Nyame, the supreme being of the Akan, is the same as Yahweh of the biblical account. We also call him by other attributes such as Onyakopon, meaning the great living one who alone is wise and supreme, and Tredrampon Kwame, the reliable one on whom we can lean on and won't sleep. Kwame to signify he is Lord of Saturday, the ancient national Akan day of rest. Well then, if Yahweh and Yahweh are the same, then the attributes of the 7 Kra, or the 7 spirits of Yahweh, described by the Akan, should complement the beliefs found in scriptures, and perhaps give us a new dimension other than the traditional Eurocentric interpretation of the biblical text, which seeks to philosophically conceptualize the nature of the 7 spirits, rather than recognizing their existence as unique creator souls of the Creator, and in the process burying the audible voice of the originator. Ancient Israel might have fallen as it was prophesied. But it is not dead. The ancient scribes might have passed, but the spirit of scriptures is still alive and well among the people of the book who carried in their oral traditions and customs several aspects of their beliefs across the African continent, where they adapted these beliefs to their newly found environment and to the diaspora.
We want to tell you thanks for coming here, and we look forward in everything being a success. We said thanks to Yen King Pong, which is the Almighty God. We say we are Kamba, knocking our family. We are Kamba, knocking our family. Bless.
My compass is my tradition. It points to where I came from, helps me understand who I am by reconnecting with my mother's and father's cultural roots and ancestral heritage. In it, I find several aspects of the biblical belief system and culture preserved through time in the form of oral tradition and symbols. My spiritual anchor is the biblical scriptures. They point to the path to follow and have never failed me. In them, I find several aspects of the beliefs and roots of my tradition preserved through time in written form. Discovering one is finding the other, in a way that if I didn't have the one, I would have discovered it through the other. Allow me then to take you onto a journey to discover my tradition, as it blends effortlessly and naturally with the biblical account, to understand how our ancestors among the Akan would have been able to determine in which of his 7 Kra or spirits Nyame was dealing with us. From the sound of rushing waters signifying that Nyame is dealing with us through the spirits of understanding, to the dreadful sounds of thunders and lightnings to signify he was standing by us in his spirit of war, to the quiet and peaceful place in which our ancestors knew to retreat to hear the gentle voice of Yah expressed through his spirit of wisdom, the old lady, as we are about to uncover next. One God, 7 spirits or 7 breaths, 7 energies of life. A validation of the biblical account through our tradition on the African continent. Let's begin. A person born on Monday, the 2nd day of the week in the Akan calendrical system, receives the surname of Kwadjo or Kojo for a male and Ajwa for a female. The creator soul or spirit of Nyame, whose role it is to watch over individuals born on Monday, is Ajo. The etymology of the noun Ajo denotes something that is peaceful, calm, quiet, and cool. These characteristics point to the principle of wisdom in Akan tradition, as rightfully referenced by the Ivorian professor Kwame Rone Alou in his writing entitled Onomastique et Numérologie dans le monde Akan. Astonishingly, we have a perfect match with the second spirit of Yah in Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2, which is the spirit of wisdom. Let's now do the Berean task to validate that the characteristics of Ajo, listed as peace, calm, quiet, cool, are also attributes that were associated with wisdom in the cultural beliefs of ancient Israelites. James chapter 3 verses 17 and 18. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere, and a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Wisdom is from above, and we know from the biblical text and from our oral tradition that it is from the Heavenly Father, and in perfect alignment with the Akan attributes for wisdom as a creator soul. The Apostle James describes it as pure, peaceable, gentle, open to reason, which in our oral tradition is summarized as peace, calm, quiet, and cool. Let's connect again the attribute of peace to wisdom from the ancient scrolls of the Old Testament. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 13 through to 18. Happy is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding, for her proceeds are better than the profits of silver, and her gain than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things you may desire cannot compare with her. Length of days is in her right hand, in her left hand riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her, and happy are all who retain her. There is a great mystery in this last verse concerning the analogy of the tree of life for those that have ears, and to whom wisdom and understanding would reveal more. We also see in this text that wisdom is referred to as she and her, that is to say, as a feminine spirit. We will touch on this shortly and demonstrate how this is also the traditional belief among the Akan people. Now, let's take an individual look at the calm and quiet aspect of wisdom's nature in Akan and parallel these two attributes with the biblical texts. Proverbs chapter 29 verse 11. Fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. In the ESV translation it reads, "A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back." Fascinating. Wisdom from above is a spirit, a notion which is ingrained in the Akan belief system and confirmed in the biblical texts. She is not a philosophical concept, unless referring to the wisdom of man. Apostle Paul wrote in his epistle to the Ephesians, chapter 1, verses 16 to 17, "I do not cease to give thanks for you, remembering you in my prayers, that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give you the spirits of wisdom and of revelation in the knowledge of him." Not only is wisdom a spirit from above, more specifically she is a feminine spirit, whom the Akan also refer to as abriwa, meaning the old or ancient women. When the elders need to call a timeout for deep thinking and reflection in order to wisely deliberate on a complex matter, they would adjourn by saying, "Yekobisa abriwa," meaning we're going to consult the old lady, which is an ancient Akan expression to say, let's call for a timeout in peace and calm in order to return with the wisdom needed to rightfully render judgment on this matter. What did Yesu, Jesus the Christ, say about wisdom? Him being the rock sent by the Father, the rock within whom the seven spirits reside, and that includes the spirit of wisdom, according to the biblical text in Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2, which we read in part 1 of this series. Also, remember that we read in part 1 that some Akan refer to the seven Kra or the seven spirits of Nyame as Okra Eja, which means fathers of souls, implying that they are by way of the Creator, spiritual parents, and we are children belonging to the specific spirit of Yah from the day we're born, as they fashion us into the character of the Almighty Father to be in His perfect image for as long as we remain righteous and just. I will read to you what Jesus said, and it will be up to you to decide whether he was being philosophical as Western biblical commentaries interpret this passage, or whether he literally meant what he said, as also reflected in our traditional belief system. Book of Luke, chapter 7, verses 34 and 35. The Son of Man has come eating and drinking, and you say, "Look, a glutton and a winebibber, a friend of tax collectors and sinners." But wisdom is justified by all her children. Philosophy or the validation of an African tradition? You decide. Wisdom will indeed be justified by all her children, that is, those who fear the Almighty Father, observe His commandments, and keep the faith in His word, as Moses also declared in Deuteronomy chapter 4. "Behold, I have taught you statutes and ordinances, even as Yahweh my God commanded me, that you should do so in the middle of the land where you go in to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the people, who shall hear all these statutes and say, Surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to them as Yahweh, our God, is whenever we call on him? What great nation is there that has statutes and ordinances so righteous as all this law which I set before you today? Only be careful and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes saw, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life, but make them known to your children and your children's children, the day that you stood before Yahweh, your God in Horeb, when Yahweh said to me, assemble the people to me, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children. And then we see how the spirit of wisdom is transferred from one individual to another by the laying of the hands, as did Moses do for Joshua, which we can read in Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 9. Joshua, the son of Nun, was full of the spirits of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. The children of Israel listened to him and did as Yahweh commanded Moses. Notice how, in this particular context, the verse doesn't say that Joshua was full of the Spirit of the Lord, but rather full of the spirits of wisdom, being very specific as to which of the 7 spirits is being referred to here. Indeed, there are 7 spirits, 7 breaths, 7 energies of life to give us strong support. Moses laid hand on Joshua to pass on the spirit of wisdom. Yesu spoke of wisdom as one who is justified of her children. Apostle Paul prayed for the people to receive the spirits of wisdom in his epistles to the Ephesians. They were not just referring to the transfer of an ability or an aptitude, although that is the visible evidence we can witness in a person, but beyond that, they are referring to a spirit with a voice and a story to tell, as we will uncover next. The word for wisdom in Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2 in the so-called Hebrew Strong Concordance is Hakma. We can validate its Afro-Asiatic legitimacy with the closely related African words for wisdom. Hekima for wisdom in Swahili, Hekima in Hausa, and Hakilimaya or Hakilitigia in Bambara, a language in the Manding language group, widely spoken in the country of Mali and its vicinity in sub-Saharan West Africa, and with roots identified to be closely related to an isolated and preserved form of the ancient Hebrew language, which I will uncover in an upcoming video by the grace of Yah. The word for wisdom in the Akan tree language is Nyansa, with the prefix Nya rooted in the basic form of the creator's name, which is Ya or Ye, derived from the descriptive form of the verb to be in Akan, and the suffix Nsa derived from the negation of the verb sa in tree, which means finish. By implication, refers to something which doesn't finish, has no end, or is never exhausted. Nyansa could therefore be interpreted as wisdom being the endless essence of the Supreme Being, the one who has infinite wisdom, or the one whom you get to become endless or to reach infinity. Remember that we've read in the book of Revelation chapter 5 verse 6 that Yesu is the Lamb of God who has the 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God. I go over these scriptures a lot as I understand the word is coming from a Western interpretation of scriptures, so we're all more prone to acknowledge the one Holy Spirit when the biblical text literally refers to 7 spirits of Yah to give us strong support. One of these 7 is wisdom, and the Bible teaches us that the body of the 7 spirits is Yesu. Therefore, according to the biblical text, any manifestation of the Creator through the 7 is heard or seen through the body, which is also known as the voice of God or word of God, that is, Nyame Asem in the Akan tree language. It is important to remember this fact as we go into the next segment of this chapter, where you would hear the spoken words of wisdom, that all actions and statements of each of the 7 spirits expressed throughout scriptures are in fact a living expression of Nyame Asem, the living word of God who possess them all. In the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 1, verses 6 to 12, we read that Solomon went up to the bronze altar before the Lord, which was at the tabernacle of meeting, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings on it. On that night, God appeared to Solomon and said to him, "Ask, what shall I give you?" And Solomon said to God, "You have shown great mercy to David my father, and have made me king in this place. Now, O Lord God, let your promise to David my father be established, for you have made me king over a people like the dust of the earth in multitude. Now give me wisdom and knowledge, that I may go out and come in before this people, for who can judge this great people of yours?" Then God said to Solomon, "Because this was in your hearts, and you have not asked riches or wealth or honor or the life of your enemies, nor have you asked long life, but have asked wisdom and knowledge for yourself, that you may judge my people over whom I made you king. Wisdom and knowledge are granted to you, and I will give you riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings have had who were before you, nor shall any after you have the like." Then in the book of Proverbs, chapter 8, the Spirit of wisdom spoke to Solomon in this manner, revealing her existence of old, or abriwa in Akan, for the proverbial ancient woman who brings wisdom in difficult situations.
I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find out knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. Pride and arrogance and the evil way and the perverse mouth I hate. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom. I am understanding, I have strength. By me kings reign, and rulers decree justice. By me princes rule, and nobles all the judges of the earth. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently will find me. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I have been established from everlasting, from the beginning, before there was ever an earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth, when there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills I was brought forth, while as yet he had not made the earth or the fields or the primal dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limit, so that the water would not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him as a master craftsman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in his inhabited word, and my delight was with the sons of men. Now therefore listen to me, my children, for blessed are those who keep my ways. Hear instruction and be wise. Do not disdain it. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who sins against me wrongs his own soul, and those who hate me love death.
From Proverb 8, we understand that wisdom was in the beginning, at the genesis of our world and existence, and was a master craftsman right beside the Creator. We can draw another striking parallel with the Akan traditional belief with wisdom being the primordial ancient women or Abriwa in the Akan Tree language spoken by the Ashanti people of Ghana, among others. The old woman who in Akan traditional prayers is named immediately second after the Almighty Father in reverence but not in worship. There is also an association of wisdom or the old lady with the land or earth in Akan tradition, which is reminiscent of Proverbs chapter 8 verse 31, where wisdom declares that she is rejoicing in the habitable part of the Creator's earth, and her delights were with the sons of men. This parallel becomes evident in the Akan traditional prayer form where libation is poured. When libation is poured in prayer, the first step is to raise the drink offering and present it to the Supreme Creator and Almighty Father. The second step is to then pour the drink onto the earth for Asaseya, the spirit of the Creator who inhabits the land where we dwell. But who is Asaseya? What does the name mean? And is there any correlation between this name and Abriwa, the old lady of wisdom? And if there is, can we view the biblical scriptures through our traditional African lenses to get an understanding of why our ancestors incorporated this hierarchical order and the name Asaseya into our traditional prayers? Let's read about her from the book entitled Encyclopedia of African Religion, edited by Molefikete Asante and Ama Mazama. Asaseya, preceded only by Niamey, creator, in power and importance. Asaseya, also referred to as Abriwa, the old women and Mother Earth, and there you have your connection between Asaseya, Abriwa, the old women of wisdom in Akan tradition. She is the second great spirit revered within Akan cosmology. The Akan regard the earth as a female spirit because of her fertility and power to bring forth life, and further personalize her as a mother because human beings depend on her for their continual nurturance and sustenance. She is of paramount importance to the Akan because it is through Asaseya, by way of libation and dance, that they gain access to and maintain familial connection with the ancestors. Named according to the Akan tradition of day naming, she is most often referred to as Asase, which means earth, and Ya, which is a female born on Thursday, because most Akan believe that Nyame created earth on the Thursday. However, among the Fanti, who believe that Nyame created earth on a Friday, she is known as Asase Efwa, female born on Friday. Traditionally, among those who call her Asaseya, Thursday is considered a day of rest on which there is no tilling of the land, no burying of the dead, and all acts that may desecrate the earth are avoided. Those who call her Asase Efwa observe this sacred day Friday. You would find the laws of the rest of the land in Leviticus chapter 25, where it is a cycle of 7 years, 6 years to work the land and a year off, where there is no tilling of the land and the land enters into its rest period. It looks like the Akans have found a way to fast track this to 7 weeks. And I'll tell you what, it takes a lot of faith for any farmers or a people to wait for a whole year period without working the land and expect to receive crops within that year and the subsequent years. Let's continue reading. Generally, on any given day, one will not manipulate or agitate the land in any way without her prior permission, gained exclusively through the pouring of libation, because serious consequences are believed to befall those who violate protocol. And you can find the laws against those who violate protocol in Leviticus chapter 26, ranging from a disastrous famine coming against the land to the Lord himself coming with a sword, to the people working hard on the soil, but another people reaping the benefits of it, which means that you would work hard but never get wealthy from the rich soil where you are right now, to the people being scattered into slavery. And the only way to break out of this curse is to revert to the commandments as laid out in the biblical scriptures. Continuing reading. It is important to note that there are no shrines dedicated to Asaseya, nor are there priests to serve her because she is not a deity whom people may consult through divination. The Akan believe that everyone has the ability to show her reverence, whether through libation or simply keeping the earth clean, and that her abundance is accessible to us all. And that is wisdom. If everyone did their part, we wouldn't be in this mess that we are right now in terms of toxicity of the land and in terms of social and geopolitical status as a people.
This is what Africa's largest gold producer looks like from above. As gold productions boomed in Ghana, illegal mines have sprung up along most of its rivers. Earth is mixed in the water, making it untreatable. Miners use mercury to separate the gold. Once mercury is in the water, it's nearly impossible to remove it.
See, today I have set before you life and prosperity, death and adversity. For I am commanding you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commands, statutes, and ordinances, so that you may live and multiply, and the Lord your God may bless you in the land you are entering to possess. But if your heart turns away, and you do not listen, and you are led astray to bow and worship to other gods and serve them, I tell you today that you will certainly perish, and will not prolong your days in the land you are entering to possess across the Jordan. I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you today, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life, so that you and your descendants may live.
And there is yet more that Moses said and did that we can parallel with our Akan reality and traditions. If you wonder why a lot of our rituals to determine whether someone is honest or dishonest, telling the truth or lying, why do these rituals contain earthly elements such as mud or the dust of the ground? It is because this powerful cry or spirit of the Almighty Father is connected to the land or earth, making it sacred, and thus bringing into judgment anyone who willingly acknowledges it while coming into contact. Let's read about it together in the same chapter of our previous book. Asaseya is also known as the upholder of truth, and as such, in everyday situations, those suspected to be less than truthful are challenged to touch the tip of their tongue to the earth as evidence of their honesty. You will also find a spiritual lie detector ritual in the context of suspicion of adultery in the biblical book of Numbers chapter 5, where it is written that the priest shall take some holy water in a clay jar and put some dusts from the tabernacle floor into the water, then make the accused drink the concoction, whereby they would be exonerated if telling the truth and is innocent, or cursed if found guilty and lying. I will touch a little bit more onto this connection between the Akan belief of Asaseya, the Abriwa or old lady who is wisdom in our proverb, and earth. Let's now take a closer look at the name Asaseya, beginning with the Asase prefix, and provide a further analysis against the biblical texts. As we've read, the name Asase in the Akan Tree language of Ghana simply means the earth in reference to the land. It is not a spooky name, just as the words earth or land in English aren't. In the proceedings of libation, the priest or the individual would use the drink offering as a vehicle through which the words of the prayer are carried throughout the earth. It would therefore appear to the viewer as if the individual is speaking to the earth. From a Eurocentric Christian traditional practice where one would kneel down and put his or her hands together in prayer, the Akan traditional prayer of first engaging the Creator towards the heaven, then making prayer requests through words spoken unto the earth might seem odd or even pagan to some. However, to me, our traditional practice and gestures call to mind a couple of biblical passages. The first is in Deuteronomy chapter 32, where Moses spoke and said, "Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teaching drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, as raindrops on the tender herb, and as showers on the grass." If we were to read this in the Asante Tree Bible, where the word for earth is asase, it would say, "Monyaso, o osoro namekasa, tie, o asase, nsema ofrimenum. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O asase, the words of my mouth." And this is practically what is done in our Akan traditional prayer when the drink offering is lifted toward heaven in praise to the Almighty Father as an opening to the prayer speech. Then the offering is poured onto the earth to hear the words of the prayers which are carried through the liquid dropping onto the ground, and as Moses would say it, resembling raindrops on the tender herb and as showers on the grass. The second biblical passage that comes to mind when observing the libation prayer when one speaks to the earth is in the Bible book of Job chapter 12, where it is written, "Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, and the fish of the sea will explain to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In whose hand is the life of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind? Does not the ear test words, and the mouth testeth food? Wisdom is with aged man, and with length of days understanding." I will just add this to my Akan people for whom these verses would seem like taken straight out of a page of our tradition and belief system, and upon reflecting that the third act of libation pouring in prayers is to remember the names of our ancestors. Let's always remember those who came before us, our parents, and those who sacrificed and paved the way for us, for it is in the remembrance of where we came from that we know where we should go. There is an Ashanti proverb that says that when one stands on another's shoulders, then he sees over the markets. That is to say, we must stand on one's shoulders to see the bigger picture of our existence and where we are now. However, let's always remember that our strength and salvation as a people is in no one else but the Almighty Father. Let's now take a closer look at the suffix ya or efwa given to the land or asase, then provide a further analysis against the biblical texts. As we've read previously, Ya or Yaba is the name given to a female born on Thursday, the 5th day in the Akan calendrical system. On a side note, whereas the English translators of the Bible gave the name Jacob as the name of the biblical patriarch who was renamed Israel, the Hebrew transcription of the name as seen in Strong's H3290 has retained his name as Yakobi, phonetically written Yakobi, whereby the H appears as a tool to create an ethno-linguistic disconnect. That is just to say, do not be confused by the spelling, whether it is written Y-A-A or Y-A apostrophe A or Y-A-H, it is still the same root and it is pronounced exactly the same. Yeah. Efwa is the name given to a female born on Friday, the sixth day in the Akan calendrical system. A question should come to mind. Why is that, although the characteristics of wisdom are associated with the spirit of Niamey, who is in charge of the second day of the week, which is Monday in Akan tradition, yet when making the connection between her and the land, the name given to her is either that of a Thursday-born female, so Ya or Yaba among the Akan, or the name of a Friday-born female, so Efua among the Fanti, who are also Akans? Could the most ancient written justification for this traditional belief be found in scriptures? In Proverbs chapter 8, verse 31, wisdom is quoted as saying that she is rejoicing in the inhabited world of the Creator, and her delight was with the sons of men. There are two timelines to this declaration which we would validate further from the biblical book of Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, later on. The first timestamp in Proverbs chapter 8 is that wisdom came to earth, onto our land, at the time when it became inhabited, that is to say, when life first appeared on earth. The second timeline is that wisdom is dwelling with the sons of men. Let's look into Genesis to find out when life first appeared on earth, that is to say, when it first became inhabited. Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 to 23. Then God said, "Let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmaments of the heavens." So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to his kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." So the evening and the morning were the fifth day. That would be the day when wisdom, the ancient women, or Abriwa in the Ashanti Tree language, came down onto earth to rejoice in the inhabited world of the Creator on the fifth day, or Thursday, making it a sacred day for our land. Hence, the female name Ya, given to the land, or Asase, as a Thursday born among the Ashanti. The second phase of wisdom's declaration in Proverbs chapter 8 verse 31 is that she is dwelling with the sons of men. Let's then see when men came into existence. Genesis chapter 1 from verse 26. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Let's now jump to verse 31 to see what day of the week this event happened on, as that would also be a marker for the date when wisdom would come to dwell with the sons of men. Verse 31. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. The sixth day is Friday, making it a sacred day when wisdom came to dwell unto the land of our ancestors. Hence, the female name Efua, given to the land, or Asase, as a Friday born among the Fanti people of Ghana. Depending on which time marker you go with, the biblical account clearly shows that a joyful event happened on these days, the days when wisdom's presence became a blessing to our land and our people. But why wouldn't this be common knowledge among all people of the earth, who would have then observed these days as a sacred day for the lands in the Christendom religious doctrine? Instead, we find this on the African continent among the Akan tribe on the west coast, then further afield among the Shona people of Zimbabwe, who observe a no farming day called Chisi, when the land is sacred on either Thursday or Friday, all the way to Madagascar, an island on the eastern shores of the African continent, where the Malagasy people living in Nalaotra observe prohibitive taboos, working the land in wet rice fields on Thursday, which is considered the sacred day of rest of the lands. The reason why this is restricted to groups of people mainly found on the African continent might be found in the biblical book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 24, where wisdom specifies where or to whom she was specifically sent to. Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, chapter 24. Listen to wisdom. She proudly sings her own praises among the Israelites, her own people. In the assembly of the Most High, in the presence of His power. In other translations, it says, in the presence of His angels.
I am the word spoken by the Most High. I covered the earth like a mist. I made my home in highest heaven, my throne on a pillar of cloud. Alone I walked around the circle of the sky and walked through the ocean beneath the earth. I ruled over all the earth and the ocean waves, over every nation, over every people. I looked everywhere for a place to settle, some part of the world to make my home. Then my Creator who created the universe told me where I was to live. Make your home in Israel, he said. The descendants of Jacob will be your people. He created me in eternity before time began, and I will exist for all eternity to come. I served him in the sacred tent and then made my home on Mount Zion. He settled me in the beloved city and gave me authority over Jerusalem. I put down roots among an honored people whom the Lord had chosen as his own.
Remember what Jesus said, wisdom would be justified of her children, because wisdom dwells in the descendants of Jacob. Her final words in Proverbs chapter 8 verse 36 should send chills down the spine of the inhabitants of the lands where the people identified as remnants of the dispersed tribes of Israel dwell, as seen here on the map of Alan Godby.
Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who sins against me wrongs his own soul, and those who hate me love death.
If our history and present state doesn't validate this warning, then I don't know what does. Every time we do wrong to our people and nation, and any time we disrespect and violate our own land, we go against our wisdom, and the consequences against us come swiftly, quickly. As Moses said, it would be our wisdom as a people to keep the commandments of God as prescribed in the Bible books of the law. Let he who has wisdom and understanding of these things be blessed, and he who doesn't, pray for repentance in the faith of Yesu, to be led to the understanding of the will of the Father, lest the fourth spirit of the Creator is unleashed against them, as we will uncover next. A person born on Wednesday, the fourth day of the week in the Akan calendrical system, receives the surname of Kweku for a male and Equia for a female. The creator soul or spirit of Nyame, whose role it is to watch over individuals born on Wednesday, in Akan tradition, is Awuku or Wuku. One of the characteristics of Awuku as documented in tradition is to be an advocate. Astonishingly, we again have a striking parallel between the fourth spirit of Yah, listed in Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2, which is the spirit of counsel. As we can see from the Thesaurus Plus online dictionary, advocate and counselor are similar meaning words or mutual synonyms. Advocate is a synonym for counselor in lawyer topic. You can use advocate instead of noun counselor if it concerns topics such as attorney or advisor. By definition, an advocate or a counselor is a person whose profession it is to conduct lawsuits for clients or to advise about legal rights and obligations. It is important to understand how the spirit of counsel of Yah, the Almighty Father, typically pleads or conducts his lawsuits, that is to say, his purpose, against nations in order to advise or counsel us about our obligations or to remind us of the legal rights of his chosen people. In Isaiah chapter 19, verse 17, we read that, "And the land of Judah will be a terror to Egypt. Everyone who makes mention of it will be afraid in himself because of the counsel of the Lord of hosts, which he has determined against it." Therefore, one of the reflections of the spirit of counsel of Yahweh in action is a sentiment of terror and impending doom in the heart of those unto whom it is sent against. This brings us to the other characteristics of Awuku, the spirit of counsel of the Creator in Akan tradition, which I will parallel with the biblical texts. The root of the noun Awuku is Awu or Owu, which means death, in the Akan Ashanti Twi language, as rightfully documented by both Dr. J.B. Donkwa and Professor Kwame Alu. We then have the suffix ku, which translates into kill, and also aku, which means notable. According to our Akan folklore, Awuku is identified as being mean-spirited. As a matter of fact, a typical appellation for male born on Wednesday in Ghana is Kweku Bonsam, which literally means Kweku evil. Let's now do the Berean task to search through scriptures to see if these attributes, which may appear controversial by the typical Western Christian standard of God, are actually more natural and better understood in Akan tradition, that is to say, among one of the many ancient people it originates from, and whom are scattered across the African continent and onto the diaspora. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 6. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up. In the New King James Version it reads, "The Lord kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up." The Lord brings death. The Lord kills. In Akan tradition, we will say Awu, which means death, and Kum, which means kill. It is the spirit that effects these in our tradition, in addition to being the spirit of counsel or the advocate. Remember what Jesus said in John chapter 4, verse 24, that God is spirit, and we know that the spirit is sevenfolds, as described again in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 2. Let's now draw a parallel between the controversial name Kweku Bonsam, which means Kweku evil, as a nickname for a male born on Wednesday in Akan tradition, and do the Berean task to equate this characteristic with Yahweh God as a spirit in the biblical texts. Amos chapter 3 verse 6. Shall a trumpet be blown in the city, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in the city, and the Lord has not done it? Let's bring in a second witness from Isaiah chapter 45 verse 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. If you are hearing these verses for the very first time, you might struggle to reconcile them with the Spirit of God in Christian theology and reinterpret the word evil for disaster. although the same word which you can find in the Hebrew Strong's Concordance H7451 as a reference is translated in the King James Bible Version as evil 442 times, then as wickedness 59 times, then as wicked 25 times, mischief 21 times, etc. However, for an Akan, this is perfectly reconcilable with tradition, whereby the fourth spirit of the Creator out of 7 is Awuku, the one who, in addition to being the divine spirit of counsel or advocate, is also the one who brings death, who kills, and who is so dreadful our ancestors refer to him as being mean-spirited. One who should bring you to the fear of the Creator if you are on the wrong side of the fence, and one whom your enemies have better pray the Almighty Father doesn't send against them should his righteous servants invoke the dreadful prayer in Psalms 109.
My God, whom I praise, do not remain silent. For people who are wicked and deceitful have opened their mouths against me. They have spoken against me with lying tongues. With words of hatred they surround me. They attack me without cause. In return for my friendship, they accuse me. But I am a man of prayer. They repay me evil for good and hatred for my friendship. Appoint someone evil to oppose my enemy. Let an accuser stand at his right hand. When he is tried, let him be found guilty, and may his prayers condemn him. May his days be few. May another take his place of leadership. May his children be fatherless, and his wife a widow. May his children be wandering beggars. May they be driven from their ruined homes. May a creditor seize all he has. May strangers plunder the fruits of his labor.
Do not be confused, though. The evil spirit of the Lord in tradition is not the same as that which is invoked by witch doctors or in reference to the devil known as Satan the adversary. In Akan tradition, no one would associate the Creator's spirit Awuku to these practices, as the torment and affliction he brings to people is to counsel those who are destined to escape back into the spiritual righteous path so they would walk in the clean ways of the Creator. Speaking of mischief as one of the translations for the word used for evil in the King James translation of the biblical text, another well-known character from the Akan folklore who is a Kweku is the spider, Ananse, the intelligent and crafty one, the king of mischiefs, who brings affliction to his adversaries, and whose stories and oral accounts are so ingrained in the Akan culture that they have survived the memory reset attempts against our families carried through the Middle Passage and the unparalleled cruelty and legacies of the transatlantic slave trade. I will now play to you an excerpt from a documentary taken from JP Doc Film, where he interviews everyday people in rural areas of Ghana on their understanding of the characteristics of Kweku Ananse, who is the mythical representation of Awuku, the fourth spirit of the Creator in Akan tradition.
Wɔyɛ nipa a wɔyɛ adeɛ a ne ho ɔhene asɛm biara wɔ wɔn bi.
Kyerɛ ɔyɛ ɔdaadaafo kyerɛ ɔba wakɔ ɛmɛ ne nyimpa no ɔba wakɔ ɛmɛ nyini sana na sɛ nyame ama wo adwene bi ɛ ma wɔyɛ bɛtɔ wo na ɔde wɔato fam koraa ɔyɛ ɔdaadaafo.
Kwakuya Nanse no onyo bia Kwakuya Nanse ye me ne wo mienu me no benu me kana kwapum twi o me no benu na ye Kwakuya Nanse no Kwakuya Nanse obra na oboe no eno na ode agyaye na sese ye da ho wo so obra no Kwakuya Nanse osisifu oyo nyansafo oyo osisiefo
Memaye ji ho amde tu metire me pa inde okoye oduaro e ma wokofa damandade no ma ohunu plan na oje na ode kɔbɔ awie na ade no sɛ ya ɔno a angyame ntum ngyame muhu dɛ awie na ɔsra na ade nkyɛ yi nti muhu dɛ na kokwa na nso ɔyɛ nyimpa bi a ɔyɛ ɔboafo
nana nyankopɔn de yi ɔsɛ hwɛ watena se a na kyɛ sɛ kɔkua na so no wɔhwɛ no a ɔyɛ nipa bi a ɔyɛ nipa a ɔyɛ daadaafoɔ a n'adwene mu da hɔ na kɔkua na se deɛ ɛne ɛsɛ wɔtena awiase a ɛnka aban naa ne kɔkua na se nti ɔno deɛ n'asɛm deɛ woyi nyankopɔn a kɔkua na se ɔka ho paa
tete kasum ifi kankyere tete kasum ifi kankyere no sɛ deɛ nananom ka kyerɛ yɛ papa no ka kyerɛ no ɛne yɛsua de ato yɛ tirim me papa no obi kyerɛ no na ɔnso de kyerɛ me ɛno nipa ko nso ɔkyerɛ me papa no nso no ɔno nso ɔyɛ dɛ obi nso na kyerɛ no enti tete kasum tie twi na America no tete kasum ne fi ɔka kyerɛ sɛ yanka kyerɛ wa anka wuri hunda si anka jiwa madaf wuri hu nanka wuri ntisu da.
What is interesting here again is that one of the interlocutors mentioned how he knows through the tales of Kweku Ananse that he is the creator of the moon and the stars. Remember that in Akan tradition, this is a personification of Awuku, the spirit of the creator who is in charge of divine acts performed on the 4th day of the week, which is a Wednesday. Let's then see if there is a correlation between the Akan tradition of the moon and the stars being created on the 4th day, that is in reference to the name Kweku being given to a male born on a Wednesday, and the biblical texts. In Job chapter 38, the Bible tells us how Yahweh appeared to Job from out of a storm and exposed the lack of understanding of man. Yah reveals to Job that he had an audience when he laid the foundation of the earth, and these were the morning stars singing together, and all the sons of God shouting for joy. Let all creation glorify Yah today as it was then, as we recount his acts of creations. Genesis chapter 1 verses 14 through to 19. God said, and remember that the word for God here in the Hebrew text is Elohim, that is in the plural form, so gods. One God, 7 spirits, 7 energies of life. Let's go back. God said, I command lights to appear in the sky and to separate day from night and to show the time for seasons, special days and years. I command them to shine on the earth. And that's what happened. God made 2 powerful lights, the brighter one to rule the day and the other to rule the night. He also made the stars. Then God put these lights in the sky to shine on the earth, to rule day and night, and to separate light from darkness. God looked at what he had done, and it was good. Evening came, then morning. That was the 4th day. You will find a startling similarity between the story of creation in Akan tradition and that of the biblical narrative in the book of Genesis, according to the specific and exact same day of the week each act was performed. The difference is that the Akan only need to know the tradition of our day names to come to the knowledge of the story of creation as transmitted from generation to generation, way before the Christian missionaries came onto our shores. To me, this is yet another validation of the biblical text being an accurate written form representation of the account and prophecies of our common ancestors among many tribes spread across the African continent and the diaspora. I will now tell you a story from the biblical scriptures which will bring home the Akan understanding of how Awuku, a spirit that is a counselor, could also be qualified as mean-spirited and even nicknamed Bonsam, that is evil, and who meticulously crafts his deadly moves in the way a spider silently prepares a web to entrap a prey it then watches and tangles itself onto before bringing death if no escape is made for it. This is the story of how the spirit of Yah counseled King Saul to invite David into his court, or if you would prefer, how the spirit of Yah became the advocate of David to enter the court of King Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 16 verses 14 through to 23. The spirit of the Lord had left Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord was terrifying him. In the Word English Bible translation it reads, "Now Yahweh's spirit departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from Yahweh troubled him." Let's continue reading. "It's an evil spirit from God that is frightening you," Saul's officials told him. "Your Majesty, let us go and look for someone who is good at playing the harp. He can play for you whenever the evil spirit from God bothers you, and you would feel better." "All right," Saul answered. "Find me someone who is good at playing the harp and bring him here." "A man named Jesse who lives in Bethlehem has a son who can play the harp," one official said. "He's a brave warrior, he's good looking, he can speak well, and the Lord is with him." Saul sent a message to Jesse. "Tell your son David to leave your sheep and come here to me." Jesse loaded the donkey with bread and a goatskin full of wine. Then he told David to take the donkey and the young goat to Saul. David went to Saul and started working for him. Saul liked him so much that he put David in charge of carrying his weapons. Not long after this, Saul sent another message to Jesse. "I really like David. Please let him stay with me." Whenever the evil spirit from God bothered Saul, David would play his harp. Saul would relax and feel better, and the evil spirits would go away. The instrument you're hearing now is called a kora, and is found among the people of West Africa, in particular the Mandingo or Mandinka tribes. It has evolved over the centuries to a 21-strings harp, which, according to tradition, represents the life of a child. 7 strings to bring the past to life, 7 strings to sound the moments of the present, and 7 strings that will call the future. It is the instrument played by the griot, also known as Jali or Jelly, and who are custodians of oral tradition via storytelling transmitted from father to sons across many generations in the Mande culture. According to Lucy Duran in her paper entitled The Kora, Tales of a Frontier Instrument. Just how long a journey the kora has been on, from its local origins to the world stage, is best understood by looking at its colorful history and the mythology that surrounds it. The kora is a uniquely West African instrument. It belongs to a family of calabash harps found exclusively in the West African savanna and is probably of ancient Mande origin. Many authors have described the kora as a harp lute. With its half-calabash resonator, skin sound table and long wooden neck, it may indeed look like a lute, but technically it is a harp. West African griot lute, which is a more ancient form of a harp available in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, and xylophones must be of some antiquity because they are so widespread Similar instruments are found right across West Africa in different cultures and with a variety of names, all the way from northern Nigeria to Mauritania. But what makes the kora interesting is the story of its origin, which retains an element of similarity among these diverse cultures in West Africa. All the stories about the origins of the kora at some point refer to jinns, Muslim spirits described in the Quran as the first creators of the instrument. They would play deep in the bush or on an island, on a river, in the heart of Kabul. On a side note, the word jinn typically refers to an evil or mischievous spirit, from where the English word genie comes from. Most accounts say that a flamboyant griot known as Jadi Madi Wulang or Red Jadi Madi, whose surname was Sissoko, was responsible for discovering and appropriating the kora from the jinns. Walking through the bush, he heard some celestial music and found a jinn hidden in a hole in the ground, playing a large string instrument. And if you have watched the video on Tano and Bia that I have made, you would know from the biblical text where Korah, an Israelite from the tribe of Levi, went down alive into, and you might then be able to extend your understanding of this belief further. Jadi Madi, the story goes, became bewitched by the sound and managed to trap the jinn and steal his Korah. So the jinns invented it, they say, and still own it. The kora is a jinn's instrument. It's just been on loan to griots ever since. It is tempting to dismiss this as a bit of colorful folklore, but it is so much at the heart of kora mythology that the presence of jinns and the spirit world keeps coming up as an explanation for any kind of irrational behavior or unexplained events. Just like the great blues players who made a pact with the devil on the crossroads at midnight, kora players are believed to get their inspiration from jinns, sometimes even to the point of being driven to madness. And as a side note, Lucy Doran documents another interesting fact when she writes that most accounts agree that the first actual named griot of the Monday word was Nyankuman Dua, also spelled Nyakuma Dua, who was the griot of Sunjata's father, Nare Makan Konate. Since the time of Sunjata, griots have been both feared and esteemed because of their powers. Instruments could be made to play by themselves, and the words of the master griot could split a door in two or cause a tree to drop all its leaves. Right up until the colonial period, kings and warriors would be accompanied onto the battlefield by their griots, encouraging them to be brave and then singing their praises at the end of the battle. I do not know the origin of this individual, Nyankuman Dua, who was the first actual named griot of the Monday word. However, his name has a very strong Akan resonance, which I could interpret as follows. Nyan, which is rooted in the basic form of the creator's name as Ya or Ye as the descriptive form of the verb to be. Kum, which is to kill, and Man, which means nation, and Dua, which is a tree. The word Dua for tree in the Akan Ashanti Twi language is also found in the word Nipa Dua, which literally translates into person tree and is the Akan word for human being. Remember when Jesus healed the blind in the book of Mark chapter 8 verse 24, Jesus asked him, "Do you see anything?" And the blind man looked up and said, "I see men like trees walking." This is food for thought for those with a spirit of understanding and wisdom to relate this linguistic aspect of our culture to the story of creation in the book of Genesis. But this is a topic for another day. The name of this very first griot among the Mande, had he been an Akan person, would then have translated into the Ashanti Tree language as the person who is from the nation of the god that kills, or the person of God who kills or destroys nations. There are many diverse harp players in various cultures of the world today, but what makes the West African harp experience unique in this context is the connection of the instrument with the evil spirit from God it belongs to, and the fact that only a player coming from a specific set apart ancient family line can activate the right vibrations and play to kings in order to appease the spirit world it came from. And to my Mandingo aka Mandinka family, I salute you for carrying through with this tradition.
This is a kora, spelled K-O-R-A. It's a very important instrument in West Africa. Back in the days, still now, where this instrument used to play only to king and queens. You have to come from a family of the griot, who are the mediators, the kora players from West Africa. But I personally, I'm not a griot. Luckily, my mom, she's a griot. But my father is a Keta, so I come from the king side, the royal family.
In the biblical account in 1 Samuel chapter 16, which we have read, we see that Saul's officials are from this culture, whereby they could immediately identify the source of the king's torment as coming from an evil spirit from Yahweh. And also they knew how to appease it by looking for a person in a specific family lineage who could play not any random instrument, but a specific one, the harp. This story of how an evil spirit from Yah became the advocate of David to enter the king's court, or equally, how an evil spirit from Yah counseled King Saul through torment in order to bring about the will of Yah, which was to bring David into his court, might be a stumbling block to those outside of the culture, but to those within, it is another validation of the biblical text being factual and culturally relevant, even today, among the people it originated from, on the African continent and those in the diaspora. Well, you might say the word for spirit in Spirit of the Lord is in capital letter, in my Bible at least, and the word spirit for an evil spirit from the Lord is in lowercase. Well, the reality is that in ancient Hebrew, there was no capital letters. It is the word rak, Strong's Concordance H7307 in modern Hebrew, or the word kra in the Ashanti Tree language, as we covered earlier in this video. The attempt to make a distinction between the spirits of God by capitalizing characters shows that the translators struggled within themselves to come to terms with this concept, which is indeed foreign to their understanding of the nature of the Creator, but native to the African concept of God, with a focus here on the nature of the seven spirits or seven creator souls of Nyame in Akan tradition. And then again, some might say it is written on evil spirit from the Lord, not of the Lord. Do not be mistaken. In older translations, such as the Geneva 1599 Bible, which precedes the King James Bible, it clearly says on evil spirits of gods. Other variants may appear to be a modern revisionism to fit a particular belief system, but without access to the original text, I cannot say for sure. I would now take you back to the JP Doc film interview where one woman identified the spirit that animates the mythical character Kuku Ananse as being deceitful, then moves to put you down if Nyame God is not on your side. Let's do the Berean task to validate that this is also found in scriptures. Jeremiah chapter 4 verse 10. The prophet Jeremiah cries out to Yah when he realized that God had allowed the people of Jerusalem to be deceived by false prophets so he could put them down. Then I said, Sovereign Lord, you have completely deceived the people of Jerusalem. You have said there will be peace, but a sword is at their throats. In 1 Kings, Micaiah informs King Ahab of Israel that the Most High God has pronounced a death sentence against him. And he proceeds by telling him how the process occurred from the spiritual realm to his reality. 1 Kings chapter 22 verses 19 through to 23. Micaiah continued, Therefore, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord seated on his throne, with the whole host of heaven standing to his right and to his left. The Lord asked, Who will deceive Ahab, so that he will go up and fall on Ramoth Gilead, which means go and get killed? And one said this, another that, until this spirit came forth and stood before the Lord, saying, I will deceive him. The Lord asked, How? He answered, I will go forth and become a lying spirit in the mouths of all his prophets. The Lord replied, You shall succeed in deceiving him. Go forth and do this. So now the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouths of all these prophets of yours. The Lord himself has decreed evil against you. In the contemporary English version, it says, The Lord asked, Who can trick Ahab and make him go to Ramoth where he will get killed? They talked about it for a while. Then finally a spirit came forward and said to the Lord, I can trick Ahab. From this account, we know that the spirit who stood before Yah is a ruach, that is to say, he is a breath or an energy of life, as opposed to being an angel or malak, among the multitudes of heaven standing around Yahweh. Next, we learn that this spirit is a trickster who operates in a crafty way to bring death. The label of trickster is also associated with the mythical character Ananse, the spider, whom by his day name Kweku we know is animated by Wuku, the fourth spirit out of the 7 that stand before the court of Nyame, as we demonstrated in part 1 of this series. The advocate spirit who sets elaborate traps to trick those who fall out of grace with Nyame onto their death, just as a spider would, or as a hitman stalking his prey to strike at the right moment in our modern days phraseology. Although the more ancient stories of Kweku Ananse, transmitted throughout our generations, are full of proverbs and parables rooted in Akan myths and adapted to the environment we migrated into in West Africa, they convey a deep knowledge and understanding of the spiritual realm which we can parallel with the biblical texts. In the account of the prophet Micaiah, Yahweh gave the green light to the spirit to do what he said he would do, that is to trick Ahab so as to lead him to his death. But what is even more interesting, Yahweh declares to the spirit that he would succeed, as if he's either giving his blessing to secure the success of the mission, or he knows the particular spirit standing before him very well and trusts in his infallible ability to succeed. The text doesn't elaborate any further on this, so we don't know for certain. However, our Akan ancestors told of the origin of the mythical trickster, Kweku Ananse, and his set agreement with the creator Nyame to afflict and capture those he would ask him to, while protecting those he loves. And this traditional belief of ours was documented in the origin story of Spider-Man by Marvel. Yes, the same Marvel who produces superhero movies today, and it can be found in the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, number 48. His name was Kweku Ananse, and centuries ago he lived in the West African country now called Ghana. They said he sometimes looked like a wise old man. Other times, they said, he looked more like a spider and traveled across Africa on strong web strings, learning the ways of distant people. Soon he had seen all there was to see, had traveled the land from shore to shore, and climbed and webbed his way to the highest points. But he yearned to see more, to learn more, to see past the horizon to the world beyond the one he knew. So he resolved to climb beyond where any had gone before into the sky itself, where Nyame, the sky god, lived. Because Nyame was the keeper of all the stories of the world, past, present, and future. He climbed higher than any man had climbed before. He climbed for longer than there are words to describe it. He climbed until he disappeared, passing beyond the edge of the mortal world. When he reached the end of his journey, Ananse asked the sky god for his stories and his wisdom of the mortal world and the world beyond, and Nyame said, "My stories and my wisdom come with a fearful costs. Little spider, what price are you prepared to pay?" And Ananse said, "There is no price too high, no price I will not pay. Will you serve my cause throughout time? I will. Will you capture with your web those I ask you to capture? I will. Will you turn your face only toward me, forsaking all those you knew before?" And Ananse hesitated. I cannot abandon those who turned to me in need, those I love, those I revere. And Nyame said, "The price is sufficient." Enter then into my secrets and know my stories. And with that, Ananse passed forever from the eyes of the waking world. But his knowledge was passed to his children, who spun his story and the stories he learned from the sky god into webs of their own. From that day until this, the webs of spiders tell the stories learned from Nyame, stories of the world we know and the world beyond, stories of what is, what was, and what is yet to be, that is, prophecies. The stories are all around us for those who know how to read them. While Ananse, who was both spider and man, became ever more the spider in his service to the sky gods, both father and mother to the spiders of the world. Where they walk, he walks, and through their eyes he sees the world he left behind. So there is little he doesn't see, and less still that happens by accident. The story then goes on to describe how the spirit of Ananse was in control of the spider that gave Spider-Man his prowess and abilities. For while the spider's gifts can be stolen, let me read this again one more time and only ask you to absorb this information. For while the spider's gifts can be stolen, borrowed, or impersonated, only once were they given freely in the intersection between science and the spider. Science allowed it to happen, but science is new and the spider is old. The science was random, the placement in a room filled with possibilities, deliberate. There is no contradiction. You are a child of the spider and a child of science. You are the product of neutrons and photons, of the dance of DNA and radiation, intertwining and exchanging information and intentions. But your voice is the voice of the spider, a voice that is older than humankind itself. And to acknowledge the one is to acknowledge the other. For several decades, we were then given the image of a Western Spider-Man as a protector and superhero, an icon for our children and adult fans alike, deceived into rejecting the actual origin, the source, which is, according to the Akan tradition, our very own advocate. As Moses and the prophets said throughout the Torah, if we obey all the commandments given by Yah to our people, then we would be blessed above all the nations on earth. However, if we fail to keep the commandments, then we would be cursed and all our blessings would be turned against us. Read Deuteronomy chapter 28 if you're not familiar with it. The gifts of the Spirit would surely be turned against us, as Yah himself would turn against us, as he had declared in Ezekiel chapter 5 verses 7 to 10. Go read it. Our wisdom would surely be turned upside down, therefore also impacting our land, which would be constantly desolate when we understand the spiritual connection between the two from our traditional lenses. Instead of our ability to send the deceiver against those who were to come against us, they will have the trickster on their side with a seemingly supernatural ability to constantly deceive us onto our loss of everything, even onto our death. Don't believe so? Pick up a history book. The remedy is very simple and was laid out by our African forebears who produced the texts of the Bible that are anchored into our very own tradition. Give up the idols and acts of spiritual uncleanness. Look to the commandments of Yah, which are really designed to help us build a strong nation of people looking out for the welfare of one another, and who would then be capable of extending their wisdom to the whole earth. I will read to you a biblical passage which shows that even in the beginning of our common era, the Apostle Paul and his disciple Timothy understood the difference between the deception of the man of sin, that is Satan, and the spirit of deception sent from Yah to execute his will and to capture those who fell from his grace. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses 9 through to 12. This man, and that is in reference to the Antichrist or the lawless one according to the Amplified Bible. This man will come to do the work of Satan with counterfeit power and signs and miracles. He will use every kind of evil deception to fool those on their way to destruction, because they refuse to love and accept the truth that would have saved them. So God will cause them to be greatly deceived, and they will believe these lies. Then they will be condemned for enjoying evil rather than believing the truth. These verses summarize perfectly the clear cultural distinction between the deception and evil works of fallen angels and the spirit from Yah, who operates in righteousness to counsel his lost people so they can seek him through their personal affliction, and to deceive those who operate in injustice and persist in their wicked ways so that they may perish. Next, we will explain how the seven spirits of Yah in our tradition bring us from the heat of a raging warfare to be born new into perfection. In the meantime, stay blessed, and to you and your family, I pray grace and peace to you from the one who is, and was, and is coming, and from the seven spirits that are before the throne of Yah, and from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn from among the dead, and the ruler of the kings of the earth. To the one who loves us and freed us from our sins by his blood, who made us a kingdom of priests to his God and Father, to him be glory and power forever and always. Amen. One God, seven spirits, seven energies of life to give you strong support. Have faith and keep the commandments of Yah.